Watch the working girls go by. Watch the basket people walk around and mumble. Gaze out at the hourglass sky. There's an old man there from the old world. To him it's all the same. Calls all his customers by name. Down at the Sunset Grill. 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 You see a lot more meanness in the city.
Alright, hi there. Today I'm going to be covering Chapter 4-3, modeling with quadratic functions, and I'm going to show you how to also find the equation of a parabola given 3 points. Alright, so first thing, this is a problem, it says an arch bridge has a parabolic shape below the road. The parabolic bridge models the function y equals negative 0.00049 x squared plus 0.84x. How high is the arch? And there's this wonderful diagram that I did, and you don't have to pick on it. I know that girder over there isn't even reaching it to the top of the bridge, and that's okay. You can pick on my art. Anyway, so if I'm looking at this, there's a parabola underneath the bridge. And the question is, how high is the arch, which would be, going from here down. And, a parabola also goes left to right, which means if I was looking at this from a graphing point of view, this would be my x value, and that would be my y value. So if I could find those two numbers, that has to do with the vertex, because remember the vertex is the highest point or the lowest point on a parabola. In this case, it's the highest one. So if I could find the y coordinate of the vertex, I would be in good shape here. In fact, that would be my answer. So if I take that equation, and I list what A, B, and C are. A is 0.00049, and B is 0.84. And I plug them into the ever so handy vertex formula, which once again is negative B over 2A. I can get my answer. So when I plug this in, I get negative. Oh, you know what? I made a mistake already, because A should have been negative 0.0049. B is positive, though. All right, so I got negative 0.84 over 2 times A, which is negative 0.00049. All right, so if I punch that into my calculator, you should get x equals 857.1. Okay, now I'm not done yet because that's the x-coordinate. What I'd like to know is the y-coordinate of the vertex, which means I'm going to take that equation and plug it back into the original, everywhere there's an x. So if I take negative 0.00049 and plug in the x value, which is 857.1, square it, plus 80.84 times x, which is 857.1. And this is another good time to have a calculator. So if I square that, take the 857.1, square it, multiply it by negative 0.0049, you get about negative 360. Remember, that's the original equation up there. I didn't pull that out of nowhere. And if I take my calculator over here and multiply 857.1 times 0.84, I get 720, which means my height will be 360 feet. And that's the answer. 2. Change colors here. Find the equation of the parabola given 3 points. Alright, my 3 points are 0, -1, 1, 5, and -1, -5. So the way this works is it's really a system of equations kind of problem. The ones I'm going to be giving you on your next quiz or test, there will always be one of them that has an x-coordinate of 0. All right, that's going to make life easier. Okay, that's the ones I'll be covering in this video. If you wanted to see the other ones, ask me in class. I'll be happy to show you how you do it when you don't have an x of 0. But for these, you'll always have one, which means that's the one you're going to want to start with. Okay, now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to zoom in, take one point at a time. But I'm going to take all of them, and I got y equals ax squared plus bx plus c for all 3 of them. All right, and you'll see why I'm doing it this way. Ax squared plus bx plus c, and the same thing over on the third one. Okay, so let me start on the first one. Now x is 0, all right, and y is -1. Which means when I plug in -1 for y there, and then I plug in 0 here for x, a wonderful thing happens because a turns into be 0 because you multiplied it by 0 after you squared it. B is 0, but c is -1, which is important. So what I'm looking for for my answers, I really want to know a, b, and c. If I can know those 3 things, I can plug them into the standard form of the parabola and I'll have the equation, okay? So I got my first answer of c. Next I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to put my c over here, which was -1, there, okay? And now I'm going to use this x and this y. Y is 5, and I've got a times 1 squared, just make that capital stay consistent, plus b times 1, all right? And if I do this, I get an equation. I got 5 equals 1 squared is 1, so that's a. B times 1 is 1, plus -1. Now I'm going to bring this over here because I want to have a easier equation. 5 plus 1 is 6 equals a plus b. All right, now I'm not done yet. I need to go over here. I still know c is -1, so let me plug that one in for c. Now I'm going to use this point up here because x is -1 and y is -5. So I got -1 squared plus b times -1. A lot of -1s there. All right, -1 squared is +1, which gives me a. B times -1 is -b, minus 1 equals -5. Now I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and I got a minus b equals -4. Okay, now I've got 2 equations, and I need to find out what a and b are. So I can take these, and I can put them together. 6 equals a plus b, and solve it like a system of equations, and you can get your answers for a and b. Okay? I like to do it with elimination. If you want to do substitution, feel free. This one works out beautifully for elimination because if I add straight down right now, my b's cancel out, and I'm left with 2a equals 6 plus -4 is 2. Divide by 2, and you get a equals 1. And there's my second answer. And now I can take either one of these 2 equations. I'll take the 6 equals a plus b, and I'll plug the 1 in here, and I get 6 equals 1 plus b. Subtract 1, I get b equals 5. Okay, so I've got a, b, and c now, finally, after a little bit of work. And I can write down my answer, because y equals a x squared plus b x plus c, and a is 1, b is 5, and c, we said already up here, was negative 1. And that's the answer. Number 2. Well, you try this one. Find the equation of the parabola given 3 points. And my 3 points will be 0, 4, negative 1, 9, and 2, 0. Remember to use this one first because it has an x-coordinate of 0, okay? To find C. All right, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you the answer to this one, just so you're not pulling your hair up. You're going to have to show me some work in class. The answer is y equals 1x squared minus 4x plus 4. Okay, so show me how you got that. Now I'm going to start chapter 4-4 in this video too. Maybe I'll start with a T and a D. I should call it part 1. I'll get into part 2 after that in the next video. So this is on factoring. And the first part I'm going to get into is, you know, if I have y equals x squared plus bx plus c, all right? Well, I've got really nothing in front of the x squared, all right? There's two main things in factoring. Well, there's a couple things, but when you got a trinomial, there's two main ones. There's ones where you got nothing in front of the x squared, like this one, except for the implied 1. It's always there. And then there's ones where you got something other than 1, like a 2, 3, negative 6, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to start with that right now. And number 1, factor x squared plus 9x plus 20. Okay, so with this, I'm looking for what are the factors of C that add up to B. Remembering that B is 9 and C is 20, okay? So if I quickly go over here and make a little chart and say what are the things that multiply to 20, that would be, there's always 20 and 1, there's 10 and 2, and there's 5 and 4, and I think that's it. I'm only looking at the whole numbers. I know, you know, I could probably get 2.5 to go into it, but that's not going to be my answer. Now, there's only one of those three sets that adds up to 9, and that would be 5 plus 4 adds up to 9. So it multiplies to 20 and adds up to 9, which means I'm going to go over here, make two sets of parentheses, put x's in the front, and in the parentheses goes plus 5 and plus 4, and there's the answer. Nice and easy. All right. Number 2. x squared plus 14x minus 72. Okay, so factor that one. A little trick here. Negative 72, I'm over here, I'm listing them. Usually I first just try to figure out what multiplies to 72, and then I'll worry about the negativeness in a moment. So negative 72, that would be obviously there's 72 times 1, there's 36 times 2, there is 9 times 8, there is 18 times 4. That's a pretty good list. I'm sure there's a couple more, but let me start there. Now, I need two things that multiply to give me a negative number, negative 72, which means the only way you get a negative number is when one of them is positive and one's negative. All right, which means, if I made, all three of the, or all four of those negative, do any of them add up to 14? Well, this one adds up to negative 71, this one adds up to negative 34, this one adds up to negative 1, and that one adds up to negative 14. I'm looking for positive 14, which means that actually if I go and make the 4 negative, then they multiply to negative 72 and add up to positive 14, okay? So that's going to be my winning pair. Once again, I got x and x. In the parentheses now goes plus 18 and minus 4. Okay? And you could always check this by foil or box and see, do you get the original or not? If you multiply that out, x plus 18 times x minus 4, and you get something other than what you started with, you made a mistake and you should go back and check it. All right. Number 3. I got negative x squared plus 13x minus 12. Okay, now I'm sure there are different ways to do this, but I like to have my x squared positive, which means if I pull a negative out, I can get rid of that, okay, because that really changes some of the dimensions here. And if I pull that out, what I'm left with is positive x squared. The 13x becomes negative 13. You're changing all the signs inside of the parentheses, and the 12 also becomes positive, okay? So I get that, and this makes it much, much easier for me anyway, because now I can go over here and I can say, what are the factors of 12 that add up to negative 13? Now, I need something to multiply to a positive number and add up to a negative one, which means there's only one way you get that, and that's if they're both negative. If I took negative 6 times negative 2, that would give me positive 12, and if I add them together, I get negative 8. So that happens sometimes like this. In this case, the winning pair is negative 12 and 1, which means I got that negative sign on the outside. I got x, and inside goes minus 12 and minus 1, and that would be my answer. Okay? Not the only correct answer form of that answer. There's about 3 or 4 that you could also try. All right. Number 4, I'm going to leave up here as a you try. Where I got negative x squared plus 14x plus 32. You can do that one for me, bring it into class. I'm going to come down here and do number 5. Now, that's not the only kind of factoring we have. There's also this kind, which is really factoring out what we call monomial, one thing, all right? So in this case, I'm looking at what can I pull out of 6 and 9, what are they both divisible by? And you're going to be putting one thing on the outside of the parentheses is basically the idea. This is actually the opposite of the distributive property also. 6 and 9 are both divisible by 3. N squared and n, they both have n's. This one only has one n, so I can only pull one out. The smallest exponent, which in this case would be an implied 1 there, will be the determining factor of how many I can pull out. Okay, now what's left after I pull those out? Now you could either cancel divide over here, or you can just, I'll explain in a minute. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. I had two n's here. I pulled one out outside, which leaves me with one more n, okay? Or you could have gone n squared divided by n is also n. That cancels with the exponent. 6 divided by 3 is 2. That's another way to do it, which gives you 2n. 9 divided by 3 is 3. I had an n here, but I pulled it outside, which means there's no more n for the second term. And that is my answer. And if you had doubts about that, you could always do distributive property. Multiply that back out and see if you get 6n squared plus 9n. If you don't, you made a mistake and you should go check your work. Okay. In that case, that one works fine. All right. So, number 6. Four x squared plus 20x minus 56. All right, now, in the next section here, I'm going to show you about how to factor when I've got something in front of the x squared. But there's one trick I always look for, and this one has it. Whenever I see this, that 4 is messing me up, because that means I can no longer do that nice easy thing where you just go x and x. You can't go, what are the factors of 56 that add up to 20 here, because there's that 4. However, you'll notice all of these three numbers here are divisible by 4. And when you can do that, I can pull a 4 out of all of them. I can make my life much easier, like I pulled that negative out. And what I'm left with is just the x squared. 20 divided by 4 is 5x. And 56 divided by 4 is 14. Now this just got a whole lot easier now, because now I can take this and now I can look at what are the factors of negative 14 that add up to 5, which gives me 14 times 1, 7 times 2. One of them has to be negative because it's got to go to the multiply to negative 14. Which means if I make the 2 negative, I can get my answer to add up to 5. 7 plus negative 2 is 5, so I get x plus 7, x minus 2, and that's what I get when I factor it. All right. All right, now here's number 7, and this is going to be where I'm factoring something with an a in there. And 11 is not divisible by 2, so that trick I did in the last one is not going to work. Okay, so when I do this, I go a times c, all right, which gives me 2 times 12 is 24. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to now look for the factors of 24 that add up to 11, okay? So 24 times 1, 6 times 4, 8 times 3. Ooh, that 8 times 3 looks nice. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these factors and I'm actually going to break up the 11x, okay? And what I get is 8x plus 3x adds up to 11x, okay? Now I'm going to bring down the plus 12 and the 2x squared. Now I'm going to draw a line down the middle and factor. I need to factor by grouping here. So I'm looking at the left side. What can I pull out of 2x squared and 8x? Which would be 2 and an x, which leaves me with 2 divided by 2 is 1. I had 2 x's. I pulled 1 out there. There's only 1 left inside. 8 divided by 2 is 4. And I got 3x plus 12. If I pull a 3 out, I'm left with x plus 4. And next, I got the answer here, believe it or not. What's in front of the parentheses is one answer, or one set of parentheses, which is 2x plus 3. There's a plus there. And the other one is what's inside the parentheses, which would be x plus 4. And those are my 2 sets of parentheses, which are my answer. All right, so I'm going to pick up there. On the next video, I'm going to do more with that factoring, okay? So I'm going to close it out with a little bit of music here. More Music, enjoy your evening.
It's a kind that eats you up inside. Hard to come away with anything that feels like dignity. Hard to get home